Let's bake this easy recipe for pumpkin brownies. These are absolutely incredible. It has a layer of fudgy brownie with a layer of pumpkin pie. It pairs so well. Let's get into it. We are making the brownie layer from scratch, so you will need your choice of chocolate, but you want to use dark chocolate. This is my absolute favorite chocolate bar to bake with, as of now at least. You need 4 ounces of dark chocolate, and you will need a half cup of unsalted butter. This is the kind of butter that I'm using. It's just like a generic Stater Bros butter. Vegan butter works as well. One of these bars is half a cup. So in one bowl, you want to weigh out your 4 ounces of dark chocolate. Then you will chop up your butter into smaller pieces, as you will see me do here in a second. And you will add the chopped up butter with the chocolate in the same bowl. Here is my butter, and we're going to melt this over the stove on a double boiler. You basically add a little bit of water to a pot, and you want a heat-proof bowl like this glass one that I'm using. Ideally, you don't want the water to touch the bowl. Warm this up on low and keep your eye on it because you don't want to burn it or anything like that. You simply want to melt it. In a separate bowl, whisk together 2 large eggs. This will be for the brownie layer. This is what we're making right now, the brownie layer only. So whisk, whisk, whisk using a little hand whisk. I didn't mention this at the beginning, but as you can see, this recipe will not be vegan. Unfortunately, okay? It's not going to work out. Next, you will add 1 cup of granulated sugar to your whisked eggs, along with a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Once again, whisk this all up until it is all thoroughly mixed together. At this time, you can go ahead and preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. And next, we will prepare our pan. I'm using this square pan. I believe it's like an 8x8. I'm going to line it up with parchment paper so that the brownies don't stick. And even then, I'm still going to lightly spray it with baking spray because I would hate to have my brownies stick, okay? I got these handy parchment paper that's already pre-cut. The size is pretty nice for when I bake things using this pan or really anything, honestly. You could use these for so many different things. Remember to check on your chocolate. Make sure that the butter and the chocolate have melted completely. Mix it all up. Once it has completely melted, you want to set this aside and make sure it cools down a little. While it is cooling down, or if it's still melting, we're going to prep our pumpkin pie layer. You will need 1 cup of evaporated milk. Add that 1 cup of evaporated milk into a separate bowl, as you see me doing here. Add 1 large egg and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract into that same bowl, along with 1 cup of pumpkin puree, whichever brand is fine. As you can see, I'm measuring using cups for the most part. Don't worry about it. It should work out. It doesn't have to be the precise measurement in grams. Add in a half cup of light brown sugar. Fresh brown sugar is always the best. Using a spatula, mix this all up just gently. This can easily splatter, so just be careful, be slow, nothing crazy. Next up, we're gonna add some flavor to this. So you want to use 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, along with 1/8 teaspoon of ginger powder and 1/8 teaspoon of ground cloves. Please make sure to use all of these powders. It's what's going to give the pumpkin pie layer that oomph, that beautiful flavor. Highly recommend not skipping out on any of these powders. And the last thing is you want to add 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, but I'm not a fan of cornstarch, so I put 1 tablespoon of flour. So either one works, okay? It's just to thicken it up a little bit. Whisk it all up, whisk, whisk, whisk. Make sure that all those powders are thoroughly mixed in there. And this will be your pumpkin pie layer. It should be pretty watery, don't worry. Okay, here we have our cooled down chocolate, melted chocolate and butter, as you can see. This is to finish off our brownie batter. And once again, you do want to make sure that this has cooled down, but not completely, so keep an eye on it. You will add that egg and sugar mixture into your melted chocolate and butter. And using a spatula, you will gently fold that in all together. You don't want to make scrambled eggs here, so again, it has to be cooled down and just gently fold it in. Make sure it is all thoroughly mixed together as always. Next up, you need to add in a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour into your melted chocolate mixture. You do need to make sure that you sift your flour so that your brownie batter is not clumpy. You do not want that. You also want to sift in 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder or cacao powder. Either one works. I'm using cacao powder. It's more rich. I am using a very rich cacao powder as well. Look at how beautiful this looks when you're sifting it. Because we used unsalted butter, you can also add a dash of salt. It will give the brownies a nice little, very, very subtle salty taste. Very subtle, okay? Using that same spatula, once again, mix it all together. Once it's finally all mixed up, now you have your brownie batter. And now you know how to make delicious brownies as well, because you can use this as just a brownie recipe. But to be honest, if you go on my page, I do have a brownie recipe that is a little different than this one, and it is incredible. Time to assemble the brownies. So you want to spoon the brownie batter into the prepared tin and spread it into an even layer. I'm using a regular cookie scooper to scoop it out, but you can really just use anything, whatever is going to work for you. The important thing is that you make sure that it is an even layer. You can gently shake it up as you see me do here, just to ensure that it is all flat throughout. Next, gently spoon the pumpkin layer over the top of the brownie layer and carefully spread it into an even layer. I advise that you do not pour the batter from above onto the brownie layer, or it may disrupt the brownie layer and you will no longer have the even layer that, we're looking for here. It's the whole point of making these layered brownies. This is why you see me using another cookie scoop and just being gentle about it. It's like you're just gently pouring it right on top. You obviously don't want the 2 layers to mix. You want the brownie layer all on its own and then the pumpkin layer, okay? Very, very simple. And at this point, your oven should be preheated and ready to put this into the oven because you don't want this to sit for a while. You don't want to mess up the layers. By the way, this recipe, the measurements makes this exact amount that you're seeing here. Again, this is about an 8.2 by 8.2 pan. Bake this for around 50 minutes or until the point where if you give the pan a gentle nudge, the pumpkin layer may have a very slight wobble, but it shouldn't wobble like liquid. It should not be raw. It should be fully cooked. Before enjoying your pumpkin brownies, please make sure that you allow them to cool down in their pan fully. I also recommend that you do this before you slice them up. Otherwise, it can really be a mess, okay? If anything, I also recommend that you freeze this for just a few minutes to help solidify it a little bit before you cut it. Cut your brownies into whatever desired size you would like. I started off with these really big squares. They look so beautiful. If you're giving this to a loved one, or maybe you're having an event, a small event really. I mean, these are perfect. But I actually did end up cutting these a little bit smaller because they're just so filling. But there you go. These pumpkin brownies are so delicious. They make for the perfect fall recipe. The fudgy brownie is so perfect. Okay, it definitely is on the fudgy side, and it pairs so well with the pumpkin pie. Brownies are always best when you make them from scratch using dark chocolate, so you already know this recipe is incredible. If you would like, before serving your brownie, you can add some whipped cream on top and enjoy it that way as well. I truly hope you enjoy this recipe. If you decide to make it, please comment below. How did it work out for you? Did you enjoy it? What worked out? What didn't? Please, 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 if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. It encourages me to keep going and sharing my favorite baking recipes. I really appreciate you subscribing to my channel and being a part of my community. By the way, please make sure to refrigerate these brownies. You do not want to leave them sitting in the counter overnight or any of that. As you can see, they do contain egg and dairy. Oh yes, and look at these pieces. I did cut them smaller and they look beautiful as well. So delicious. Thank you all for being here. Catch you on the next baking video.